It begins not with birth, but with blood carefully counted, traced, weighed like gold. In the echoing corridors of palaces, lineage mattered more than love, and marriage was never a question of hearts. It was a ledger, a calculation, a tightening noose. Europe's royal daughters were born already promised, not to suitors. That the child would not walk, would not speak, that the womb would close before heirs could be born. And still they repeated it. Charles II, the bewitched, was the end of the line, twisted and barely human, his tongue too large to speak, his intellect dimmed by generations of familial collapse. But before Charles, there were dozens of women who bore the load of inbreeding quietly, queens. They tried to fix it, sometimes marrying daughters to foreign cousins instead of first ones, but by then the damage had been sown deep. You might still hear them. The rustle of skirts in locked rooms, the faint perfume of lavender and sickness, the echo of a voice practicing a name that was never hers. They were daughters, yes, but they were also history's sacrifices offered not on altars, but in parlors. Their lives traded for unity, for crowns, for nothing. You will not find them in triumph. You will find them in footnotes, in genetics textbooks, and forgotten prayers. The bloodlines were maps of suffering, veiled in crests and coronets. And still, the daughters smiled in their painted rooms. They learned languages they would never use. They played the harpsichord. They walked the garden paths, slow and careful, afraid to fall, because to fall was to fail. To be imperfect was to be hidden, or sent away, or never mentioned again. And duchesses whose bones ached with age before they were 20, who miscarried child after child until they could no longer stand. One princess, Joanna of Austria, was praised for her piety, but she lived in shadow, her health too poor to travel, her marriage little more than a contract sealed with incense. Someone remembers, someone tells the truth between the portraits. They lived, they suffered, and they mattered. Another, Maria Leopoldine, was 14 when she wed her cousin. She died giving birth within a year. No portraits were commissioned afterward. Her name lives on only in church records and the black lace worn by her mother, generation after generation, because a throne was worth more than breath, more than mercy, and the women bore it in silence. Royal daughters were trained like hounds, to sit, to smile, to marry without question. Their eyes in portraits are beautiful but blank. Their letters, when they survive, whisper of fatigue, headaches, bleeding that would not stop, children who did not live. One princess wrote, "They say I am fortunate, but I am tired all the time. I am tired before I wake." She was 15. They are rarely remembered for who they were, only what they bore or failed to. And yet they endured because they had to. If they wept, it was into lace handkerchiefs. If they screamed, it was behind doors carved with saints. They learned early how to nod, how to walk without stumbling, how to bear pain with elegance. Their bodies were shaped by other people's politics, their fates sealed before they had words. But to dynasties, treaties, and family trees knotted so tightly they suffocated. The cradle might be carved from ivory, the sheets stitched with silk and prayer, but the air around the infant princess was heavy with centuries of repetition. Marry your cousin, bear him sons, preserve the line. Her smile would one day carry a throne or a grave, her womb a battlefield. And as the generations curled endlessly inward, cousin marrying cousin, niece to uncle, sister to brother-in-law, the price of power was carved quietly into flesh. They called it purity, but it rotted from within. She might be born with a jaw too heavy to close, a tongue too thick for speech, her limbs twisted, her mind stilled, her eyes forever gazing somewhere past the gold-trimmed ceilings. They called it fragility, grace, but it was damage. In courts from Madrid to Vienna, the same faces appeared, elongated chins, jutting underbites, drooping eyelids painted over in flattering oils, framed in ermine but never hidden. The Habsburg jaw, the Bourbon nose. The tragic beauty of those two inbred to stand alone. Beneath the corsets and lace, there were secrets whispered among midwives and chambermaids, stillborn girls, daughters who never bled, infants too weak to cry. The silence around them was enforced with titles and mourning veils. Sometimes they lived, but not well, and they were married off regardless, shipped from kingdom to kingdom like precious broken things. One such girl, Maria Ada of Spain, could barely speak. She was married to her own uncle, Emperor Ferdinand III, because no one else would do. Their wedding portrait shows her frozen in velvet, her face waxen, her future already decided. Another, Margaret Teresa, painted over and over again by Velázquez, looks like a doll too delicate to touch her body small, her features too old for her age. She was married at 15 to her maternal uncle. She died at 21 after 4 pregnancies. The halls of El Escorial and Schönbrunn Palace echo with their footsteps, but no one tells their full stories. They were vessels, not daughters. Behind every arranged marriage was a deeper terror that the blood would finally turn against itself. The Spanish Habsburgs bore the worst of it. Even in France, where fashion masked decay, the same patterns emerged. Bloodlines mingled and doubled back. The price of political unity was paid in chromosomes, in broken spines, in skin that blistered at touch, in madness, in loneliness, in beauty that cost too much. And now, in the quiet hours when the palaces are museums and the thrones are velvet relics, sleep now, knowing that their stories are not entirely lost.